Hello everyone, Tactically here. The Skullcannons have received a massive glow up in patch 5.3. Their missiles have been reworked to do a vortex damage against enemy infantry and cavalry, and on top of that, their melee is more effective now with their additional weapon strength. Combined with their cell healing ability Gore Feast, they are a very effective single entity unit, kiting with their explosive vortex shots, and once they run out of ammo, charging into melee to disrupt enemy units, tanking with their self-regenerative properties, grinding it out with enemy units. Skullcannon here playing as Khorne will be fielding a double Skullcannon build with a front line of Marauders of Khorne and a ton of mobility, one of them the Chaos Chariots of Khorne, and some Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes. In the skies, leading the army, an Exalted Bloodthirster here with no breath attack, just the Deathbringer for additional weapon strength and Bloodthirst for additional charge bonus and speed, while Khorne here providing some great controlling abilities with the Prey of the Blood God to pin down enemy characters for an alpha strike, Khorne's Howl for the Fleshhound summon, and on top of that he also has of course his Silence Aura, the Brass Orb, a very strong item denying enemies from using their active abilities or spells in battle. Now on the other side of the battlefield, the Wood Elves played by Oishikunane Kitan with a front line of Dryads and one single Wildwood Rangers who have their Guardians of Wildwood reworked to provide additional melee attack and weapon strength when near a unit causing terror. Behind them, a very elite line of Waywatcher supported by a one single unit of Deepwood Scouts as well. I assume they ran out of funds so couldn't bring 3 Waywatchers. Protecting these Waywatchers are a ton of elite mobility, Wild Riders, 3 of them, in fact one of them the Wild Hunters of Khorne, and further back 2 units of Eternal Gods with one with shields, one without. And they are protecting a Spell Singer of Life. Most of the army of the Wood Elves are Vanguard deployed, ready to rush down the Khorne army, a very brave attempt of the Wood Elves. Leading them is a Glade Lady with Prey of Anathema for that lockdown control as well. And that's it for the army builds. Now let's get the battle started. Battle begins, and the Vanguard deployed Wood Elf forces are right in the range of the Skullcannons. One of the Wild Riders taking noticeable damage from the Vortex. The Vortex is not only damaging these Wild Rider models, but also the Vortex effect staggers unit models, keeping those Wild Riders inside the Vortex. Though this time, the Wild Riders managed to push through, and most of them getting a great connection onto the Marauders of Khorne, while the Waywatchers Deepwood Scouts are now firing into the enemy vehicles, including these Prey of Anathema pinned Chaos Chariots of Khorne, receiving some pinpoint accurate shots from the Deepwood Scouts and Waywatchers. Wild Riders charging in as well, Wildwood Rangers piling onto them, and they are just quickly getting shredded. But unfortunately for the Glade Lord, she got pinned down by the Blood God's version of Prey of Anathema, the Prey of the Blood God. The Exalted Bloodthirster is locking in, turning on all his buffs, using Bloodthirster to boost that charge bonus, and then the Deathbringer to boost his weapon damage. The Wood Elves are trying to save their Glade Lord by dropping in a regrowth on her, but the fire damage of the Exalted Bloodthirster is cutting the healing by half. The Glade Lord also has a small health pool, so the actual healing she's getting isn't that great, and can't keep up with the shock damage she's taking. The Wood Elf units are piling in, trying to save their Glade Lord from this alpha strike, but that makes a great target for the Skullcannons to just keep firing in, using that vortex damage to work down these elite Wood Elf cavalry. And even then, the Wood Elves are not able to save their Glade Lord. The Glade Lord has been pushed off by the Exalted Bloodthirster, the Exalted Bloodthirster keeping his eyes on the prize. Skullcannon really committing the Exalted Bloodthirster here, making sure that the Glade Lord doesn't come back from routing. Now, the Wild Hunters might have taken a lot of casualties against the Bloodthirster, but they're still more than enough to beat back some Marauder Horsemen, saving the Waywatchers from the enemy mobility, but they themselves are being charged by the Hounds of the Blood Hunt, who are chewing through their physical resistance with magic attacks and will be routed. And during this whole time, the Skullcannons just keep firing in, working down the HP of the Deepwood Scouts and Waywatchers, and they should have accumulated quite a bit of damage at this point. Doing more work against some of these Waywatchers here, another shot into the blob, and yeah, one of them getting 2 chevrons, 1,300 gold worth of damage value, the other not as much, but still 500 damage value, so not bad at all. Now, the Khorne melee units are pretty much done for. Pretty much only some tattered Marauders of Khorne are still in the fight, and the Hounds of the Blood Hunt are also running out of health. Khorne has been using those Marauder Horsemen very aggressively in melee, trying to pressure the enemy skirmishers, but they have taken quite a bit of casualties as a result. The single entities, though, are still holding strong. The Skullcannons are barely scratched. One of them has taken some damage, but if he goes into melee and just grind it out against the enemy infantry, he can definitely heal it back up with the Gore Feast self-regeneration. Now for the Wood Elf side, the Wild Riders are still roaming the battlefield, but they have officially lost their Glade Lord, eliminated by the Bloodthirster. And the Exalted Bloodthirster will be returning to combat, but they still have quite a bit of mobility left. They do have a bit of advantage in terms of balance of power as well, as the Khorne troops outside of the single entities are pretty much gone. On the far side there, Wild Hunters of Khorne actually managed to get a surround on Khorne with the help of some Eternal Gods, trapping the best boy of Khorne, and is on the verge of eliminating this single entity threat. All this anti-large damage, especially the magic attacks of the Wild Hunters of Khorne, managed to punch through Khorne's physical resistance and accumulated a ton of damage on this legendary Flesh Hound. Khorne will be fading back into the warp, bringing with him his unused abilities. To be fair, there's not much use for the Prey of the Blood God now that the Glade Lord is gone and there's only a Spellsinger on foot remaining on the battlefield. The Bloodthirster don't need the snare to catch her anyways. Khorne did bring in the Khorne Dog Summon, but he did not use it. So that was unfortunate there, unable to use that Flesh Hound summon before he goes. However, Exalted Bloodthirster is still very active. He is down to roughly half health now, as he has been shot up pretty badly by the Deepwood Scouts and Way Watchers. But the Skullcannons are still fighting. There are some Murder Horsemen of Khorne with 58 melee attack with the Horn of Khorne. They might actually be able to work down the Wild Riders, though there are some Eternal Gods Dryads all piling onto these pinned down Murder Horses of the Khorne army here. So the Murder Horsemen, while able to break down those Wild Riders, they themselves will be routed by the pursuing Dryads as well, not having much armor to tank out the non-armor piercing attacks of the Dryads. However, at the same time, the Skullcannons are just free to do whatever they want. They have more than enough speed to keep up with the fleeing Way Watchers and Deepwood Scouts, and there is no mass on the Wood Elf side to pin them down. No Prey of Anathema as well. The Way Watchers are being healed up by a regrowth. This is a desperate attempt for sure from the Wood Elves, as the Spellsinger of Life is being sniped out by Bloodthirster. You can see that you don't really need the Prey of the Blood God ability on a foot Spellsinger or a floating Spellsinger, as the Exalted Bloodthirster has more than enough speed to catch up and just hunt her down. So no more healing for Wood Elves unless the Spellsinger somehow managed to regroup and return. And the Way Watchers are also being pressured by the double Skullcannons, all moving over to just hunt down these Way Watchers. Even the Exalted Bloodthirster is coming this way, while the Skullcannons are regrouping as the Wild Riders were trying to chase down and pin in one of the Skullcannons. So double Skullcannons enough to pressure back the Wild Riders there, and the Bloodthirster jumping in, shattering these Way Watchers. Still having 12 models, not a lot, but the ammo does pack quite a bit of damage over time if they can just use up all their ammo. But unfortunately, the Way Watchers have their spirits broken and will not be coming back to the fight. And the remaining Spellsinger as well, sniped out by the Exalted Bloodthirster. So no more healing support to the Wood Elves, another heavy blow to their army. We'll be going into fast forward a bit here as the single entities of Khorne just chasing off some tattered and isolated cells of the Wood Elf forces, now trying to jump into melee combat here, while the Wood Elves are trying to consolidate around the conquest point and capture some victory tickets. A pretty big mistake on the Wood Elf side, not paying attention to the capture point. Actually, both sides have been neglecting the capture point for the most of the battle. Khorne has captured the point for what, 2 minutes and getting almost 120 tickets so far. Now the Wood Elves have snatched over the victory point with their own Dryad units, but it might be too little too late, we shall see here. Skullcannons committing to cycle charging, working through the HP of the Wood Elf army, trying to get an army losses victory. With all their infantry gone, definitely the best approach of Khorne to win. At the same time, the Skullcannons are feasting on their dead foes in melee, getting some HP back. The Dryads don't really do much damage against the heavily armored Skullcannon here, and the Skullcannon can just use the Gore Feast to keep healing while staying in melee. Bloodthirster and the Skullcannon over here just jumping on some Wild Riders, making sure that the Wood Elves do not have any mass remaining in their army here. Just trying to work through the enemy mobility so that they will have more freedom and roam around the battlefield and chase down whatever units they want. Another Skullcannon shot, this time into the Wildwood Rangers. This is something great about the Skullcannons. They do have fire while moving, so the Khorne bites don't have to stop even if they're trying to chase down enemies in melee. They can just keep moving and firing however they want. Over here, the Skullcannons have taken quite some noticeable damage from some regrouped Way Watchers at 20 models, but now the Bloodthirster and Skullcannons both are just hunting them down. The Exalted Bloodthirster and the Skullcannons are two terrifying presence. These Weight Watchers are soon terror routed, but they might still come back. We shall see. Over here, Wild Rider is trying to pin down the Skullcannons here so that the slightly slower but way more devastating Wildwood Rangers, with the additional melee attack and weapon strength of the revamped Guardians of the Wildwood, they're actually doing quite some work against the Skullcannons here. But now here comes the Exalted Bloodthirster jumping and terrorizing the Wild Riders, and that leads to a chain route to the surrounding tattered Dryads. One of the Skullcannon is now down to demonic instability, but the other one is still quite healthy and the leadership is solid. Actually, this Skullcannon managed to stabilize its leadership with the Bloodthirster nearby and all the enemy units routing away. Even Wildwood Rangers have been routed with the immune to psychology, so the Eternal Gods here does not want to hold on much longer. Terror routed once again, don't really want to stand alone against the Exalted Bloodthirster and the Skullcannon. On the far side, Weight Watchers are regrouping and actually starting to fire in on one of the Skullcannons, who have a single silver chevrons by now. So 206 kills, 2,600 gold worth of damage value. Definitely doing some really solid work throughout the battle, just grinding through blobs of enemy infantry units and just shooting at whatever targets they can lay their eyes on. This Skullcannon also doing some solid work there, just using the last bit of their ammo. They did get quite a few shots back from all that melee time. The Exalted Bloodthirster, who has turned on the Bloodthirst and Deathbringer abilities, now breaking down these Dryads and Eternal Gods. This Skullcannon managed to regroup and stabilize his leadership, just hanging around their lord, just trying to stay inside the character encouragement aura, keeping their leadership high and prevent demonic instability. Just picking off some tattered units from afar with the remaining ammo. Exalted Bloodthirster routes off the Weight Watchers here, while the Skullcannons on the other side doing their thing, and that shall be army losses. Victory to Khorne, blood for the Blood God, skulls for the Skull Throne. GG to both players here, and it seems Scarbrand has managed to pull out ahead with that double Skullcannon build. 2,700 gold on this Skullcannon, getting 4 chevrons in total at a single silver chevron in the end, and 2 chevrons on this one as well, 1,500 gold worth of damage value. These two Skullcannons not only deal a lot of damage, but also tanked a lot in return, using their armor to absorb all the non-armor piercing damage from the Dryads and the Wild Riders, and heal back up whatever damage they took from all those Deepwood Scouts, Weight Watchers, and Wildwood Rangers as well. And at the same time, because Khorne and the Exalted Bloodthirster were able to snipe out the Glade Lord, the Wood Elves lost their only control ability to lock down the enemy single entities and snipe them out with Weight Watchers. So that was quite unfortunate for the Wood Elves, and a very, very good catch with the Khorne army here, giving the Exalted Bloodthirster quite a bit of value, and of course hacking through the HP of these Wild Riders and Wild Hunters of Khorne, getting some very solid work done on the Khorne army side. The rest of the army here, the Marauder Throwing Axes did some okay work, while the rest of the Marauder Infantry did meh. The Chaos Chariots also got caught pretty early in game and didn't get the most value done. On the other side, for the Wood Elves here, the Wild Riders and Wild Hunters of Khorne tried their best to carry the game, charging back and forth on the battlefield, and even attempted a desperate charge into Khorne and the Exalted Bloodthirster, trying to screen out their Glade Lord, but unfortunately the Exalted Bloodthirster just has too much weapon strength, immediately slaughtered the Glade Lord, and dealt quite a bit of damage to the Wild Hunters as well. And then the Wood Elves, losing a lot of their Wild Riders and losing the prey of Anaphrema, no longer have the tool to limit enemy movement, and the Weight Watchers as a result suffered heavily. Those Skullcannons were able to freely chase them down, pushing through enemy infantry and just keeping the pressure on the Weight Watchers, preventing them from firing. Same goes for the Deepwood Scouts. The Wildwood Rangers did some okay damage, but unfortunately, these are all just infantry. The Dryads, Eternal Gods, they don't really have the mass or speed to keep up and pin down those Skullcannons, and at the end, the Khorne single entities were roaming freely on the battlefield, going after whatever target exposed to the might of Khorne. And yeah, that's it for the battle today. I hope you all enjoyed this multiplayer action, and if you want to see more Total Warhammer multiplayer content, be sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tactical Lich, signing out.